Have you ever noticed the sudden lack of canned laughter? Do you long for the soothing tones of those ghoulish cackles?
Yeah, one thing about Boston that you've got to remember. There's so hard to drive. Stop laughing.
Let me start by saying that I love sitcoms. I'd call them my guilty pleasure, but we are way past the point of remorse. The plight of the 30-somethings in one of 3 apartments was the bread and butter of my childhood. Simple, dependable, and made better by misogyny. When I was growing up, you couldn't turn the TV on without being transported to a mythical version of New York City where people could afford to live indoors. Sitcoms were everywhere. For 34 years, they reigned supreme atop the ratings charts and dominated pop culture. Seinfeld opened the door to truly massive sitcom viewership in 1989 and ran until 1998, remaining the biggest show on television to its very last episode. Friends took the world by storm, airing from 1994 to 2004, at which point How I Met Your Mother and The Office US cemented themselves as classics. And before they finished in 2014 and 2013 respectively, The Big Bang Theory joined the party, running from 2007 to 2019, during which time it was the biggest show on television 2 years running and was top 3 for 7 of its 12 seasons. And that's just the Big 5, the most popular examples in those timeframes, but between them, they span 34 years of crushed ratings, hundreds of millions of viewers, and revenue reaching well into the billions. So, the final Big Bang Theory episode hits TV screens in 2019, but then what? Well, it stopped. Sitcoms as they had been for 34 years virtually ceased to exist. New releases were dismissed by audiences, and none have come close to a fraction of their predecessors' numbers. So, what happened? What changed in 4 years? The short answer is, a lot.
Tonight, U.S. airports on high alert to avoid bars, restaurants, and groups of more than 10 people.
COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
You must stay at home.
To become the 46th president of the United States.
We've so useful.
Fire raging up and down the West Coast.
Temperatures are warming at an unprecedented rate.
Sales top $1 billion.
Can anything slow down the surge we have seen in Bitcoin?
Bitcoin plunging to its lowest level in 16 months.
Stock nosediving 35% today.
I'm aware that some of you listening will be attributing the bulk of this phenomenon to the rise of streaming platforms, specifically ones like Netflix who license all the aforementioned hits into one place. But this answer doesn't really make sense to me. If streaming platforms killed the sitcom, why are they some of the most popular pieces of their catalogue? And if sitcoms are some of the most popular pieces of their catalogue, why has there been no successful Netflix, Disney, or HBO originals yet? The appetite is clearly there. Generations of people were brought up on sitcoms and still watch them daily, which I actually think is part of the problem, if you can even call it that. The really good sitcoms, we all know, did a great job at making themselves timeless. The struggles of the characters and stories they had to tell are not only persisting and relatable, but also really, really shallow. I mean, these people just kind of sit around all day in one of 3 places, fretting about issues that fade into the background of the average person's life when compared with some of the more pressing matters most of us deal with regularly. And while it sounds so negative to talk about it this way, it's actually kind of genius. Nobody wants to see a realistic depiction of their problems reflected back to them on a TV screen. Sure, these shows often contain themes like financial struggles and workplace pressures, but they are almost always trivialized into plot devices or used for comedic purposes. This means that millions of viewers to this day can find comfort in the cozy apartments of Pasadena and New York, getting lost in the fickle love lives of their inhabitants. One that stands out in that regard is The Office, which romanticizes white-collar desk work by portraying a company that provides the most bland and uninteresting product ever, so the staff can worry about life's real issues like pranking their desk mates and falling in love with the secretary. By playing on the relatively deep concept of love and relationships, these kind of shows build a rapport with the audience, but maintain this by never going deeper than that. Which is where another problem with this model arises. Previously, people would sit down to watch their favourite show every week, carried by its respective network. It's not quite a captive audience, but there certainly isn't much choice there. Contrast that with the world of modern entertainment and the amount of options available for every kind of show or movie, and the difference is made clear. Streaming platforms likely saw this and realised that an original sitcom, packaged and shipped the same way as they once were, wouldn't be a profitable venture. Modern television has to be gripping, attention-grabbing, and retain the viewer at all cost. There are dozens of large streaming platforms, and the average viewer probably has 2 or 3 subscriptions and access to the monumental libraries that come with them. Shows can't afford to be shallow anymore. They have to be complex and have a coherent story that gets people talking, or they just don't survive. Of course, there's always a place for comedy, but the original sitcoms that companies like Netflix have produced over the last couple years feel more like a comedy series than a sitcom. They have a chronological story, episode to episode, that require you to watch through every single time. What a lot of people love about the sitcoms of old is that you can close your eyes, click on an episode with no prior knowledge or background, and you'll still enjoy it. Series like Friends and The Big Bang Theory almost behaved as an anthology. They were loosely tied together by running themes and an overarching move forward in time, but they very rarely had 2 episodes being remotely related to one another. This was likely both an active choice by the writers and producers, as well as a necessity of the time. If your show is a weekly scheduled comedy program on conventional TV, why on earth would you require your viewers to remember what happened in last week's episode as a prerequisite for understanding the next? And if we zoom out to look at the bigger picture, we can see that with all of these changes, the sitcom has become virtually unrecognizable. Everything from the distribution to how they are filmed has changed, although that's another video in and of itself. Now, you may be thinking that all I've done is proven that streaming did kill the sitcom, contrary to what I said before. But the way I see it is that these companies don't operate in a vacuum. If there wasn't a gigantic hypocrisy occurring among sitcom fans who enjoy The Office but would lose interest if it were airing nowadays, then shows like the Big Five mentioned earlier would still be very much alive. Society's moved on to new ways of consuming media, and unfortunately, sitcoms aren't on the menu. But is that the end of the genre? I still believe that, with the right cast and crew, an attempt to recreate this dying format could be successful. The whole world seems to be moving more and more to shorter, snappier, less mindful content. Could it be that now is actually the time to capitalize on that shift in attitude and wrench some of the spotlight away from Netflix's inevitable brand new teen drama? Perhaps. Then again, maybe not. Maybe those old formats are exactly where they need to be. Large libraries of classic sitcoms adored by many, available at all times. Maybe any attempt to regain what is not yet totally lost is an exercise in futility. Just because people love the Godfather trilogy doesn't mean we should continue making them until nobody does. There's a possibility that even I, the sitcom's biggest fan, wouldn't want any more made. God knows I haven't enjoyed any attempt so far. But what do you think? Is it the natural end of television's biggest concept, or is there hope yet? If you have any strong thoughts on this subject, or a problem with anything I said in the video, feel free to leave a cutting rebuke in the comments section. I will read them all. Thank you all for watching, subscribe for more like this, and stay greasy, friends.